Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry. We were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to the Foul Pole to Foul Pole podcast, brought to you by Black Diamond Softball and Fitness, presented by the Tell Valhalla Project, where heroes live forever.
Hey, that's right. Welcome back into the Foul Pole to Foul Pole podcast. I'm your host, Tyler, with Black Diamond Softball and Fitness, and I have got a great guest for you today. It is Aldyn Wildey. She's a fellow coach within the Firecrackers Organization. She's a pitching instructor. She's a mentor. She's just a great all-around person. Aldyn, let's jump right into it. We just got some big news from NFCA and the sponsorship with Major League Baseball. I think it was a long time coming now that baseball is kind of the forefront, the big sponsor of NFCA. I think we're going to see a lot of things change, mainly the exposure and the money. So for you being in softball as long as you have, how do you feel about MLB coming in and starting to pull some weight and some money?
I'm glad it's happening. I think that it's about 5 years too late. I think that with what softball's done in the last, I would say probably even 3 to 5 years, just with the audience that it's pulled, how big the Women's College World Series has gotten, and just these athletes that we're getting nowadays. Softball's special, and I think it deserves its recognition. So I'm glad it's finally happening. But again, I do think it's about 5 years too late. Yeah.
I've talked to Coach Rico a few times, and he's talked about if he and I had the money, right now there would be a softball league, a professional softball league that's sustainable. I think Lauren has done a really good job. I think Athletes Unlimited has done a really good job. What would you like to see? What do you think is the answer to get a professional league that can sustain?
I think it's just funding. I mean, it comes down to just funding. So, you look at the difference between, the WNBA and the NBA and just the average money that a WNBA brings in versus the NBA. It's astronomically different. It's astronomically different what those athletes get paid versus men versus women. I don't know why that is, because to me, I said that I'm probably going to get some flack for this, but I think baseball's so slow. Mm-hmm. You come from softball and it's such a fast-paced game. It's so interesting. And then to me, baseball is just slow. So when you go, to me, I would think more people would gravitate towards softball because it is a faster-paced game. It's more fun. It's more interesting. You can make, from a pitching perspective, because that's what I do. I just sit there and watch pitchers because you get mesmerized by, well, how can they move a ball that much? How can they move a ball that way? And I think you can do that with baseball too, but I'm obviously biased when it comes to softball. I think the game of softball and the athletes in softball deserve a platform more than just, hey, either, deserve a platform, but also deserve the money and the recognition that MLB gets. I 100% agree. If I had the money, there would be a pro league. It's hard when we talk to these girls and the first comment is, well, it's not like you can go pro after college. Well, you can, but only a select few do, right? Some of the top athletes out of the sport go because we just don't have a huge platform for pro with softball. And I wish that would change. And I hope that it does in the coming years as more money is going into softball. I I do see that more money is starting to transition more into softball, but it's just still not quite there where we need it yet.
Yeah. Hey, you're in the Midwest, so you can go both East Coast and West Coast. I know, I'd say probably in the last 2 decades, the sport has grown, has gotten really big here on the East Coast. We'll say east of the Mississippi. It used to be all the talent, all the schools, all the powerhouse schools were getting the talent over there on the West Coast. And now I think it's spread out. You even see teams down in Florida. You see teams up in the Northeast that are powerhouses, or they'll come on late in the season and say, okay, where do they come from? Well, the people that know the game that have seen these teams building over time. I think with ESPN and what they've been doing with putting the product on TV, I think that has shown these MLB guys that it's not just little pockets anymore. It's a nationwide thing. What's your opinion on what we're going to do in the Olympics and putting that, the 2028 games, putting that on TV? Do you think that's going to have an impact and say, hey, you know what? This is the time right now. We've got to get a pro league.
I hope so. I think that is going to be a huge culmination to what softball has grown into over the past probably about 10 years for sure. I hope that 100% does. I think I saw at least the excitement on my feed about how excited everybody was that softball was coming back to the Olympics. I don't think it should have ever been taken out in the first place. Several people agree with that as well. But yeah, I do hope that with that 2028 Olympics, it's kind of that big culmination that people see like, okay, yeah, this needs its own league. It's got the fan base. It's got the people around it. How do we make this happen?
Yeah. I think with what Oklahoma has been doing, I think the timing is just right with the Olympics happening in 2020. Yeah. I wish it wouldn't have gone away, and I wish we could have done something in 2024. But I think you're right as far as the timing. I mean, we can see the money coming in, we can see the growth, the popularity. I love that Oklahoma's doing something because it's like a dynasty. And then you got other teams that are coming as well. UCLA. It seems like they're around. And then you have other teams like Alabama that's always on TV, and all these other teams. So I think the timing is right for us. So with that, when did you fall in love with the sport as a ball player? And, at that time when you fell in love with it, did you think that we would get to this point, or was it just something that you played and said, it is what it is?
Great question. So I started playing very young. I think I did the T-ball and all that fun stuff. I actually started playing baseball because that's what we had when I was growing up. I grew up in a very small town in the middle of Kansas. But yeah, I would say when I really started I started pitching at 8 years old, like many. I think it was 7 or 8 years old, like many younger kids. They all want to pitch. They think it's fun. And I think once I really started to get into pitching and understand pitching and really start to fall in love with the spin is something that I would say that it's my expertise. I can teach spin very, very well. And when I started to learn how to spin, and I feel like that was where I spent all of my time. So I would say I fell in love with softball when I fell in love with pitching, which I would say was probably around, 12 or 13 years old. That was when I decided really that softball was something that I wanted to pursue seriously. Mm-hmm. I started traveling to Kansas City 2 to 3 times a week, which is about 2.5 hours to 3 hour drive from my hometown one way. I started doing that in about 8th grade. I needed to seek out a little bit more opportunity for more competitive ball, and we just didn't have that in my area. So yeah, I would say that was about when I started really falling in love with the sport. And then, as I saw what it continued to do for me, just in terms of recruiting and the people that I met and the friends I made and all the stuff outside of it, and just, the other life lessons that you can learn from softball in general, like independence, teamwork, there's a multitude of them. But yeah, do I think that it would have ever gotten to where it is today? I hoped, because I think it's a fantastic sport. But it's certainly, I go back and think about how much, just from a travel ball perspective, how much tournaments cost when I was growing up and how much they cost now. It's about tripled. Yeah. So, it is exciting to see that the money is coming in and people are investing in the sport. I think that was always a dream to see this, because it's been such an exciting sport to play and watch grow as much as it has over the years. So I am excited that it's trending significantly upwards.
How much did your coaches impact you as far as getting you into coaching and loving that teaching element that comes with being a coach?
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
I would say that my coaches had a lot to do with it. My dad had a lot to do with it as well. My dad was a professional coach, not with softball or baseball, but with tennis. So I grew up watching him. I grew up around that. He was a tennis pro at IMG Academy out in Bradenton, Florida. So I grew up around that world. So that impacted me quite a bit. I also had very strong female coaches who impacted me and made me want to get into coaching and be able to give back to the game. I had one, she was my last club ball coach. Her name's Megan Davison. She's now also a college coach. And then my two of my college coaches, one's still the head coach at the program I was at, Aubrey Bratton. And then the other one, Samantha Fleeman Honeycutt, she was my pitching coach there. She's now just gives private lessons, but she was in the college coaching circuit for a while as well. But say those three ladies really impacted me to get into coaching, and just to see their passion and drive for the game and their willingness to give back and what they wanted to give to all of us girls for sure impacted me. And seeing, where my dad was as well, I think that was a huge impact.
Yeah. I call it almost like a sorority for you guys. The female coaches can do so much more than the male coaches can, I think, on a level that we just don't understand as a male coach when it comes to talking to females and helping instruct females and trying to figure out how they feel so we can best impact them. I wish there were more female coaches out there in the travel ball realm. I love having an opportunity to have female coaches on the podcast, because there's just something that you guys can do different than us with the beard. And I didn't play the game. I just try to understand the game, but you guys can feel the game because you've been there. Talk take me through this almost like sorority of female coaches. It's like band of sisters, if you will, like this, I don't know, this club that you guys have to where it's almost like it's you guys against the world when it comes to this, because you'll have to compete with so many male coaches that almost would want to push you guys aside and say, well, you played, you didn't coach, or, this. So kind of help me understand what it's like to be a female coach in the sport.
You have to have thick skin and you have to be tough. It's not always easy. I have plenty of males who think they can push me around. I had a male try and do it this past weekend out in Tennessee. It happens all the time. Most umpires are males. And, for me, it's establishing that I'm there, that my presence is known, that it's not going away, whether people like that or not. You can't be weak in this sport. You can't be weak-minded, and you certainly can't take everything to heart.
Right.
I think that's probably the number one lesson I would give to younger females wanting to get into coaching is you can't be oversensitive about everything. Because if you do, you're not going to last it. You're not lasting the sport very long. It's unfortunate, but that's what it's come to. And I'm also in my professional life in a career that is very strong men. It's most percentage is men. And so that's what I've grown up around. I'm also very fortunate that I was brought up to be a strong, independent female. That's a lot of how I coach my team, to be strong, independent females. Yeah. You talk about a band of sisters. I wish it was like that, but it's not. I would say that I have more female coaches that want to go against female coaches than there are a band that actually stick together.
Wow.
I think that it's a competitive world. I do have some female I'm very close to. I also have male coaches that I'm very close to and respect. So I have it on both sides. But again, that to me that's just developing relationships. Right. So I don't know that it would necessarily go into a gender thing versus just being able to develop relationships. But yeah, I wish it was more of a band of sisterhood and a more helping grow this sport for females, but it's not easy.
Yeah. Just like you just said, this weekend.
Leave that up for interpretation.
You said that you just finished up this weekend in Chattanooga. About how many female coaches were out there compared to male? What's the ratio at a showcase event like that, you think?
Oh gosh. Trying to think just of the teams we played. I want to say I saw one female out of the 5 teams that we played. Yeah. That actually made a presence. But every plate meeting I did, it was males. Most of the assistant coaches on the base path were males. Most of actually what I saw out there were males. In fact, most of the female coach presence I saw were all of the college coaches walking around recruiting. So, that kind of tells you anything.
Well, tell us a little bit about this weekend and tell us about your fall. Coaching the Firecrackers, of course, coaching the Midwest Firecrackers 16U team. Sort of wrap up this year for us and let us know what you're looking forward to next year.
Yeah, so this year was interesting. I actually had a few kids age out, few kids kind of move on and decide they want to go different directions after the summer. So I brought in quite a few new kids. So kind of molding them into some of the kids that I've had for, 2+ years. I have a kid on my team still that's been with me since the beginning of my coaching career. So she's been with me 5 years. So I've leaned on her quite a bit this year. Obviously she understands me the best, understands kind of what I like, what I want my dugout to be like, what I want our culture to be like. So that's been very helpful. But a lot of this fall was learning each other, learning me. It was a crash course of, some of the basic things that I don't see coached a lot that I try and hammer in pretty early. The 2 things that I coach a lot that I don't see taught is really cuts and relays and base running. Mm-hmm. Those are the 2 things I hammer in pretty heavily. And that's what I hammered in a lot of the fall. So yeah, I threw them to the fire. I'll be honest with you. We didn't play an easy schedule. I think the easiest tournament we probably played in was beginning of the year. We did a local, just kind of showcase thing with some teams that were local, by no means national presence, and just to see what would happen. Right. And it was ugly. To be real honest with you, it was ugly. And but for me, I needed to see that because it helps me coach. It helps me figure out where we're at. And that tournament was maybe after 2 weeks of practice. So I threw them the fire. Yeah. Our first weekend out, we went and scrimmaged 2 colleges. We scrimmaged the college I coach at and then a local JUCO. And then the next weekend out, we did that showcase. And then we took that. We were off for 4 weeks. And then we went to St. Louis and did the Team 1 exposure tournament, which is that same weekend as the Easton Rawlings showcase out in O'Fallon. Then we were supposed to play in the Top Gun Select Invitational, which is one of the top recruiting tournaments here in the Kansas City area, but weather unfortunately got the best of that and that got canceled. So we finished in Chattanooga. So, I mean, we by no means, I threw him to the fire a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
But my biggest thing was seeing them grow just in, the few months that I've had them has been phenomenal. We still have a ways to go, but the fact that I can see, I posted a play on my Facebook page from this weekend we played Midwest Speed National Holt, which is a fantastic organization and a really, really good team. Ended up losing 2-1 very last play of the game. So it was a really, really good competitive game, but there was a play that just culminated kind of everything that we talked about when it comes to communication and just the pitcher that I had on the mound can spin. So she threw a ball. This girl hit it off the end of her bat and it spun foul and then back into fair. And my catcher popped up, bare hand grabbed it, threw it to first base popped, caught the girl rounding third for a double play. So, it was a back pick at third for a double play. But just the communication and the pop and just even like the simple skill of picking the ball up with your bare hand and not with your glove, like the little things that we've hammered for the last few months, because you wouldn't think like, oh, they know that. They don't.
Right.
Just teaching girls how to throw on the run from a slot, just things that maybe you and I would think should be skills that are learned that they hadn't been taught yet. So that's been really cool to see too. We've been working on how to throw perfect one hops from the outfield to home or to any base. I saw a couple of those this weekend that were just great throws. Working on breakdowns of how to correctly crow hop in the outfield. So, I mean, really this fall's been focused a lot on just the little things, the little skills that maybe get overlooked, but that have such a huge impact on the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what I'm really looking forward to is just seeing this group continue to grow, because I've got a ton of talent. And that's what's really exciting to me is there's a ton of talent on this team, and they've really started to bond. We did a team trip down to Chattanooga. So it was my assistant coach and I, and we took 2 vans and we drove them down 10.5 hours. They all stayed in the hotel rooms together. We went to and from the ballpark. Parents weren't involved, and they had to, it was a lot of team bonding, which I think was really good. It was cool to see these girls, cool to see how these girls kind of mold with each other a little bit. So yeah, I think that's been really fun, but what I'm really looking forward to is just continuing to see them grow, because there is so much talent. And that was very evident just in how much they've absorbed.
Yeah.
Because I've told them all, I'll pour every ounce of knowledge of this game that I have into you. Whether you decide to take it is on you, but I'll give you everything you need to know to go be successful.
Yeah. That's powerful. I mean, just, I sort of, you talk about that trip that you guys made to Scenic City. That right there is just the trip itself, the team bonding, you guys going like that and having that experience. Those girls are going to be able, the ones that go off and play college ball, or they go off and join the military, or they go do something like that where they are off by themselves, don't have the mom and the daddy right there. It's just us against the world mentality right there. I mean, that's big. There's not a whole lot of teams that you hear about doing stuff like that. And then you having that wherewithal to do something like that, like, hey, this is our trip. This is what we're doing. We're going to compete. It gives them that collegiate atmosphere. So I think, hey, kudos. That's awesome. How'd you guys do down there? I mean, did you get something out of it? Did everybody get something out of making that trip as far as on the field?
Yeah, I think so. I invited some coaches that they all came out and watched, got some good feedback from them. The Midwest Speed team I was talking about, one of the pitchers that actually threw against us had Florida State out watching her throw. So, that's always good exposure to see, seeing how you kind of compete against a kid who's being looked at by schools like that. Yeah. So I mean, the fact that losing 2-1 with a team that really hasn't even gelled yet. Yeah, I'm not too upset. I won't lie to you. yeah, there's definitely room to grow, but I would say that our first game Saturday, we came out flat and we didn't look good, and they knew I wasn't happy. They weren't happy. The rest of the day or the rest of the tournament, I think the last 2 games on Saturday, we came out and hit and won. Games on Sunday, we competed. I thought, one of the other things that was super exciting, I had another pitcher who actually tore her ACL, just came back from that 6 months. She threw a little bit in St. Louis, but this was really the first full tournament she's gotten back. And I was super, super excited for her. She threw well. She kept teams off balance. And so just to see her continue to grind and see what she's going to do this winter is super exciting as well for me as a coach to just, because I've had 4 knee surgeries. So I'm having a knee injury and trying to come back from that's a little bit near and dear to my heart because I've been there. And so to see her have success and on the mound this weekend was super cool to watch.
That's awesome. I too have had 3 knee surgeries. I've torn my ACL 3 times, and those are not fun. So for that youngin to get back on the mound, I mean, daggone, that gives me cold chills. So what are you looking forward to going in the spring? What tournaments, are you getting into as far as that national scene during that 6-week recruiting window?
Yeah, Colorado will be a big one. We got the opportunity to play in power pools last year. Really hope we get that opportunity again this year. I think that was really good for the girls. Right. Looking at Top Gun Invitational or Team One Invitational, they're both hosted in Kansas City the same weekend. It brings a ton of coaches out here. Yeah. Those are super, super exciting. There's a top club that goes on in Oklahoma that we'll probably look into as well. That's a really good tournament. Tulsa Elites, again, another one that does a really big tournament out in Oklahoma every year. Those would probably be our highlights for sure. Looking at Triple Crown Nationals, of course, that's a big one we'll do. So, yeah. So, I mean, there's quite a little bit of travel, a little bit of fun here and there. And the girls have already asked to do another team to not make it 10.5 hours. I don't blame them.
Tell them you're
the 10.5 hour drive is.
Y'all come to Myrtle Beach and come play in the Triple Crown.
I love that.
I think.
That's a fun one.
I think the older ones are later this year in July. I don't think they're the early part of July this year. So maybe it's not. Maybe it's.
Well, I know Colorado's pushed back a week this year. It's actually going through the 4th of July versus the end of June. So. Yeah.
Man, I talked to Coach Heath quite a bit, and he was talking about getting the opportunity to play in California, getting an opportunity to play in Colorado, and he said, "Man, there's so many fields, there's so many teams, there's just so much going on there." I've never been. I probably won't ever go to Colorado, but where's the Mecca for you as far as travel ball destinations? I've been to a few, and I'm going to let you I want you to tell me your opinion, and then I'm going to hit you with 2, and then you tell me if you've ever been there before. But what is this is the place to be right here? What is it?
As far as tournaments or just as far as
locations? Teams, just this is it. You just have that warm and fuzzy when you get there.
Yeah. I would say the state of California's got it. That would be probably a big one. Right. I would say that's a huge softball mecca. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to throw the Midwest in there. We've produced just in this Kansas City area. I mean, we have some big organizations just in this area alone. We've got Aces that are based here, Top Gun that's based here, Select Fast Pitch that's based here. Yeah. And while they pull in kids from national, they've got a ton of local kids in this Midwest area. I mean, you talk about Nija, who plays for Harvard, who's a pitcher. She was based out of Topeka. That's one thing that the Midwest has produced that I can personally say, because I work with some, that is just pitching. I mean, there's some elite pitching here in the Midwest. So I would throw Midwest in as a hub, but that's just me being a little bit biased. And I've seen the talent here. We play against it here. It's really cool to have that much local talent to play against.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What is some of the best facilities that you've played at?
Best facilities.
Have you had a chance to play in Indiana in Kokomo. Park there.
No, we
I
haven't.
think this year I think 18s, the Alliance 18s are up there this year. I think
Okay.
If you get a chance, that's an incredible place. And you just played in Chattanooga, Scenic City. There's some there's some great parks there. I think it's called the Summit. Did you get to play at the Summit?
We were out at Camp Jordan, and it was an awesome complex. You know, my only thing is the pitching mounds could have used some love. There was about a 3-foot trench in almost all of them, but the complex itself was really nice and pretty, and the area was pretty.
Yeah. I see. We went there for the Alliance Open Nationals this year, the 14U in Tennessee, and the Summit was awesome. When you go up to the top there, and you're standing on the ball field, but you can look out and all the mountains are there. To me, that was one of the best scenes to look at a ball field. But I've never had a chance to get out to California. I want to. Get out there with Coach Rico Medina and Brashear and stuff. But speaking of the organization, we're both involved coaching in the Firecrackers organization. And I do have to ask you what impact the organization has had on you as a coach, and what the organization sort of offers us as coaches to allow us to be ourselves and have our brand inside of the big brand that is the Firecrackers.
Yeah, I will say that Tony Rico has been phenomenal. I mean, he's been a huge sounding board for me since I joined into the organization, and that's been a huge help because I got, when I came actually into the organization, I brought my team and merged in with another team who was already Firecrackers. So I wasn't really super involved in any of like the national coaches call. I had never met Tony or talked to Tony, and then the coach of the original Firecrackers team ended up moving. And so I took everything completely over. And that's when I really started, hey, I want to get involved a little bit more. I want to understand what this is about, because at that point we felt like we were a little bit on our own island that was just wearing a name across a jersey. Mm-hmm. But, it's so much more than that. Once I got connected with Tony and started talking with him, I mean, he really has been a huge support and a huge sounding board, and just really the advice that he offers, just because he's been around this for so long, has been, invaluable. I can't thank him enough for everything that he's done just to even help me in the short period of time that we've gotten to, talk and know each other. The national coaches calls, those are invaluable as well. You get to hear so many different perspectives from people who have been around the game. Yeah. For me, I'm 28 years old. I've only been coaching for 5 years. I still have a lot to learn. So that for me as a young coach, like I know people are like, oh, you're so young, you've done so much already. And it's like, yeah, but there's still so much for me to learn. And I still mess up on a daily basis. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm perfect by any means. So, I think to see Tony's perspective on a lot of things, and to just understand the Firecracker culture and what that means to be a part of, it's been phenomenal. While yes, we are part of the big organization, we all are kind of allowed to create our own brand. And I've been talking to Tony a lot about wanting to create that for the Midwest, because this is really the one place that I feel like could be big, but it just needs a little help. There's a couple coaches that have built some things out in Arkansas, I know, that are close to me, and there's a couple independent teams out in the Illinois and St. Louis area. So, we've got some around here, but really kind of pulling together to create that brand and to create that, that name in the Midwest, I think would be really cool. And those are things that I've talked to Tony a lot, and he's been very supportive of a lot of things. And just that support alone is something that you may not get from every organization. And then the sole fact I know several organizations are very much like, well, you're going to play in the tournaments that we tell you to play in.
Right.
And I know that for a lot of organizations, the fact that we get to basically run our own thing, as long as we're following the rules and the guidelines of what it means to be a Firecracker. Yeah. I mean, that's it's, I call it being an independent team within a big family. Mm-hmm. It's kind of how I like to think about it. I had a couple issues a few weeks ago, and I was able to text Tony, and he was right there. He goes, keep your cool. That's your, that's your brand, that's your demeanor, that's everything. Right. And that's what you're known as. It takes one time to blow up and things not go well. And it was good to have that reassurance, because I was frustrated in the moment, and that happened. So just to have that sounding board is something that I'm very fortunate for the Firecrackers for.
Yeah. You and me both. We get the opportunity to sit in those Tuesday meetings, and we kind of have an idea of how the meeting's going to go, because we've been in them and we kind of know the pacing or whatever, but we never know who's going to be in there, who Adam is bringing in or Tony's bringing in. And all of a sudden we're sitting there listening to Leah last 2 weeks ago talking.
Yeah.
You got a 3-time gold medalist that's sitting there and talking to us. So you just don't know. But I find myself a lot of times after the meeting, it's like, there wasn't a whole bunch of just like softball centric stuff. It's human stuff. It's people stuff.
Right.
And that's who Tony is. And that's why, like, he's such a great leader and someone that I consider a mentor and a friend, and how he helps everybody. It's not just one individual coach that he doesn't necessarily know. He tries to do his best to get to know us and to help us and give us that information. I can't speak of other organizations, but I do know our meetings that we have made me a better coach and made me like a better mentor for others as well. That impact that you have, within your brand of your team, how much do you find yourself talking to these athletes and just reiterating or telling them exact things that you just got out of a meeting with Coach Tony? Almost verbatim.
I would say a lot of the focus this year has just been on perspective. And I know that that's something that Tony hits a lot on in these meetings. And that's something that I've really taken akin to and really enjoyed, just the perspective and the mindset and changing your mindset of, one of the things he says all the time when he discusses hitting, like, cause I have told my hitters this numerous times, where their first thing is, if they ground out, I rolled over. Well, no, actually you didn't. You hit a drop ball. Mm-hmm. That's what the ball's supposed to do. That's why people throw you drop balls. So it's understanding, let's look at the mindset and the perspective behind it. Like, did I roll over? No, I chose to swing at probably a bad pitch for me. Mm-hmm. And understanding the mentality of what it should be like when we go into the box as a hitter. Those hitting, I'll be the first one to say hitting's not my forte. It is 100% not my forte. Pitching and infield is where my mind is at. I've had to teach myself outfield, which if you would have saw me try to play outfield growing up, you would be like, oh God. But, being able to learn outfield has been something that has been a challenge, and I've really enjoyed, because it's another aspect of the game that I think everybody should learn.
Right.
But yeah, when it comes to pitching, and that's a lot of what I talk to even my hitters about, because, hey, if I'm calling pitches and I'm watching you swing, this is what I'm looking for. So let's think about what this coach is looking at. What did you just do with that foul ball? What's likely coming at you next? Right. What do you think this coach is trying to do? Because essentially pitch calling is all about setting up pitches, right? I have a kid that's, got a fantastic rise ball. I'm going to go set up that rise ball. So you may see 4 pitches in the dirt, and then that next one's coming up at you. Yeah. It's all about setting something up, because that's where the pitcher's strengths are. So when you can figure that out as a hitter and figure out how to read a pitcher's game, that's when you become an elite hitter.
Yep.
It's not because you go hit 1,000 balls off a tee and have perfect mechanics. I've seen plenty of hitters that have that and that do that. But if you can't understand what your pitch is, understand likely how coaches are going to throw you, you can do all the practice in the world, but you've got to work on that mindset and mentality and perspective.
Yep. You're right. The perspective has been the main focus in our meetings for the past little bit. And you're like me when it comes to the coaching. We don't coach just the how to do something. We coach the why and the reasons for it. And, we get that from, a lot of different perspectives. How much film do you look at with your players, or do you send your players, or do you look at as a coach? How much do you sort of break down maybe a pitch sequence, or from both sides, maybe it's offensive or defensive?
We don't watch it hardly at all, any film. I may send them different clips here and there that I will see of things. But as far as breaking down like our actual game films and clips, we typically don't, unless there was something that maybe from like a defense perspective or a communication perspective that I want to revisit. But a lot of times I use kind of that as a teaching point in the moment. As a coach, I watch some film, and that's how I like to see, like, hey, maybe this team bunts a lot, or I like to see, how their hitters approach things from a pitch calling perspective. So as a coach, I'll watch some film. But as far as watching it with my team, we actually don't do a lot of it.
I think you're a lot like most of the people that I talk to about it. It's really not a film session. It's more like if you see something, boom, you might circle it and kind of revisit that. But you're like me, if I do hitting lessons, and that's what I do. I'm a hitting instructor, and I will stand there and I will record the girl, and I'll say, look, I don't know if you can feel this. I can see it. I don't know if you can feel this, but I can flip it around and say, look, do you feel what your hips are doing right now? Or do you feel your elbow dropping out of that slot? And then when they see it, it's almost like immediate. So I was just getting an idea of like that coaching style. I feel at the end of the day, we as coaches, we get too involved with the analytics. We get too, we separate ourselves from being just ball players. So how do we get away from all this data and all this analytics and just go back to being ball players?
So I'm a data analytics person. My background is in science. That's what my degree's in. That's what my full-time job is. I'm actually a research scientist. So data and analytics is something I really like. But it's not something that I rely on when it comes to softball. Like, it's really good for some things, like Rapsodo. I love it for pitching.
Yeah.
Because I can see spin. I can ask my kid, hey, do you see what that spin's doing? Do you understand what that spin's doing? Do you understand what I tell you when I need this spin to do a certain thing?
Right.
And when you give them, I can take a video, or I can do this. I do use video in a lot of what I do, but it's more mechanics. It's not necessarily spin training. So I do like data and analytics for some, but not all. Like, the one thing that I certainly am not is I don't sit there and record exit velocity. I'm not a big exit velo person. I'm not a big overhand throwing velocity person. I'm more focused on, are you throwing the ball correctly? Do we have that spin rotation on the ball? Are you coming outside? Like, the more the mechanical side of it, I guess. Right. So when it comes to when are we going to get away from the data and analytics and actually go back to being ball players, I feel like that's a lot of how I coach anyways. But that's because I've never been somebody that wants to sit there and take a lot of time and spend an entire practice on measuring exit velos.
Yeah.
I get that those are good measurements for some things, and that's great. And I think that everybody should get that, but I don't think that should be a main focus.
Yeah. I think when you get your metric testing, I think it's kind of just to see where you're at. But I know that there are people out there that want to break down every single metric. I mean, you look at like the way baseball is going now. I mean, they have a stat for just about everything. And it's just like, man, let's get back to just playing the game, like put ball in play, run, I don't know. Well, I can tell you,
I agree.
For me, I'm too dumb to understand the analytics and the metrics and the breakdown and stuff. But like, if you tell me like, wow, that rotation or that spin was more than that rotation or that spin, I might be able to see it or say, okay, well, if we do this, then the ball moves that way. If we do that, the ball moves this way. I could see that. But if you're telling me, between 4,000 and 6,000 RPM, I don't know the difference. I mean, you could though, not me. I don't know. But it's been a pleasure of mine to have you on. I want you to come back on and let's kind of talk about it again early next spring and what we're looking for. are looking forward to with your season, and kind of let me know how the winter went. What do you have planned this winter for your girls as far as workouts and stuff, and downtime, and maybe recovering from an injury and kind of getting away? What's gonna be your sort of MO this winter?
Yeah, so my winter programs are very intense. It's where we do a lot of breakdowns. So right now the girls are off. They get about 4 weeks off. Then we'll go and do a couple weeks in December before they get a break for the holidays. And basically it consists of 1 4-hour practice a week. They get an hour of speed and agility. I'm very fortunate that my assistant coach has speed and agility training, so he runs all of it. Then it's a breakdown of fielding mechanics, breakdown of hitting mechanics, and we really go into kind of a deep dive. They do not throw the entire month of December, so we actually don't start throwing again until January, because really that December is just kind of getting them back into it, and then really starting to break stuff down. And then we hit it hard the 8 weeks of January and February before we lose our Kansas girls to high school softball. Yeah. So the other thing I'm super passionate about that I build into my winter programs every year is a mental toughness training program. I'm actually very fortunate that, I've been chosen to participate in a pilot opportunity with the Firecrackers because it's something that I'm super passionate about. So I can't talk a ton about it, but it's something that I think is going to be really, really cool to bring to the organization. But something I'm super passionate about when you talk about mental sports and performance and mental toughness. So that's something I build into my winter programs anyways. So I'm just fortunate that we get to pilot test something for the Firecrackers this year. So really excited to talk a little bit more about that.
That's good. That's huge. I am big on the mental toughness and stuff. I've had a few people on the podcast, and I have Valerie Austin coming back on. She is an accomplished author and talks about how to teach mental training and that kind of stuff. So I can't wait to see what you guys are doing with that. I think it's the more we can get with mental training, mental toughness, just kind of understanding what we're going through is huge. I mean, there's so much that it's untapped out there. So that's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. So, well, Aldyn, it's been awesome having you on. I want to have you back. Let's try to set something up early in the spring, maybe when the girls get back from high school. Here in South Carolina, they do high school ball in the spring as well. Before you kick off the season, or early on in the season next year, at least before you hit the summer, let's have you back on, and let's see what we can come up with.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I've really enjoyed this. It's fun to talk shop for a little bit.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
When you download the Bakers app, you have easy access to savings every day. Get the most out of weekly sales and receive personalized coupons to save on your favorite items, all while earning 1 fuel point for every dollar spent. Bakers makes it easy to save while you shop, whether it's in-store or online, so you get the most value out of every trip, every time. Download the Bakers app now to save big on your next purchase. Bakers, fresh for everyone. Must have a digital account to redeem offers. Restrictions may apply. See site for details.
At Baker's, shopping with pickup and delivery is the same as shopping in-store. Same low prices, deals, and rewards on the same high-quality items. It's one small click for groceries, one big win for busy families everywhere. Start your cart today at bakersplus.com. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Save big on your favorites with the Buy 5 or More, Save $1 each sale. Simply buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with your card. Baker's, fresh for everyone.